Folks, when I just think about this, if you've been with us for any length of time, actually when we first started over a year ago, the focus was on these three aspects: the power of your human body to heal itself and to work well, what our bodies need to work. That, of course, includes nutrition and exercise. And number three, the threats to our health. And the more I thought about that, the more, obviously, we've expanded it since then to include about seven main factors. But if you think about it today, it's like almost nothing you do is right. If you just follow what 99.99% of people are doing, most of it is actually destroying our bodies, whether it's the food that most of us eat or the drinks that we take in. And there are toxins in everything. And so it's almost like people just give up and say, well, whatever will be, because it's like there's nothing you do that's right. And that is because, for the most part, people just don't know where to get the right information. There are threats that are affecting our health. There are threats that are out there. But at the same time, there are technologies, there are things being found out about nutrition, about our bodies, that if we only knew, we'd be able to even do better than we have been doing in the past. And so one of the reasons why I'm so glad we're having this webinar tonight is that it's not just about sugar. It is not just about an alternative or substitute for sugar. This is about a nutritional aspect that actually works with your body. It helps your body work better. It provides nutrition, and at the same time, it limits your exposure to toxins and other threats. So I'm really, really glad about this. And this quote, I think it's a good place to bring up this quote that I really like. As knowledge with regard to the effect of food upon man increases, it is more than conceivable that the races that first avail themselves of the new values of nutrition may decrease the handicaps of disease, lengthen their lives, and so become the leaders of the future. And we are so fortunate to have JC come speak to us about a breakthrough that really is making a huge, huge difference in people's lives all over the world. And so without much further ado, I'm just going to ask Sherry to do the introduction, and I will be advancing the slides too, by the way, so I'll be doing a lot of stuff tonight. Sherry, go ahead.
Thanks, David. Okay, yes, I would be honored to introduce JC to everyone. JC Spencer is founder and CEO of the Endowment for Medical Research, which is a nonprofit, faith-based medical research and education public charity think tank based in Houston, Texas. Wow. And he is a businessman, a husband, a father, a grandfather. He grew up being trained in business and manufacturing in a family-operated food packing company and milling company in southwestern Missouri. He's worked as a consultant for many engineering and manufacturing corporations, which gave him a unique and broad perspective on operations management. Over the years, JC has expanded his ventures into various areas of science and finance. He has even studied extensively the science of the brain for much of his life. He wrote a book about that. We had an entire webinar on that. He's lectured internationally and currently speaks about glycomics and brain function. He has lectured on the science at Vanderbilt University and covers many aspects of health improvement for groups across the country. And one of those groups across the country tonight is Building Strength Webinars.
That's right.
So glad that you are here, JC. Let me unmute you. Okay,
great.
JC,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sherry and Dr. David. I appreciate your inviting me to be on the webinar tonight. Hold your questions, and at the end of the webinar, I will be answering some questions along with Chad Ashweiler, the Director of Research for the Endowment for Medical Research. He's in Minneapolis, and he will be joining us at the end, and so get your questions ready. This is today's class will introduce you to the science behind trehalose. David's playing the slides in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm in Houston, Texas. Chad is in Minneapolis, and Sherry is in California. So David, give us the next slide.
Sure. All right. Let's see. Somehow we're going to make this work.
Yep.
All right.
That was the technical difficulty we were having earlier on because we couldn't get the slides to move from here. There we go. Okay. And go ahead to the next one. The Trehalose, we have learned from the scientific discoveries that Trehalose can prohibit the cause of certain neurodegenerative challenges, and Trehalose can protect the cell from environmental stress. In the next slide, we'll talk about some of the university studies that are going on across around the world, really. And there's universities in 3 different countries have contacted us for help in the research of Trehalose. So it's really pretty exciting. A lot of the universities are doing research on the Trehalose, and it's also been in outer space. And so we'll talk about some of those studies in this teaching. The Endowment for Medical Research is a 501c3 public charity, as Sherry was talking about, and so this is just and the disclaimer of all of this would be that we're not curing or treating any disease. We're furnishing information. Next, our purpose for the reports that we've done and the nutritional pilot surveys tell us what benefits the different sugars have in our physical and mental health. Next, our current focus is around the neurological benefits of Trehalose, and it's really interesting at the results that we have gathered together. David, next.
Are you seeing that? The current?
Yeah, it's doing it a little bit slower, at least on my computer then. We're seeking participants to work with us on our Trehalose pilot surveys, and from our homepage at endowmentmed.org, when you scroll down and over on the left, you can click on a new click on or view the download the evaluation forms, which here's an example of the evaluation forms, and these are where we come up with a baseline study. And this one is on diabetes, but there's a number of different evaluation forms. We're gathering a lot of data, and we need funding to be able to publish that data, get it to different universities. But while we're waiting on some of the funding, we're gathering a lot of information that can be extremely valuable later on. In just an overview of some of the pilot surveys that we've done over the last 7 or 8 years has been dealing with Alzheimer pilot surveys, dementia, Huntington's, Lyme, Parkinson, stroke, trauma, autism, and ADHD. And we've had 2 of the Alzheimer papers published, and they have verified that indeed we can improve brain function. And what is so exciting about improving brain function is that when you improve brain function, you have literally addressed well over 600 potential diseases without naming any of them. Next. The sugars are dealing with the human body really from the very, very beginning of human life. Researchers are continuing to discover which sugars trigger specific cell functions, and the sugars are vital at the moment of conception. They're vital in determining the type of blood and in building the cell's DNA. Now, Trehalose, it seems, is playing a role of protector of the cell. Next. In this lesson, we will not be going over how the different sugars make up the operating system for the body and how they actually are able to interpret the DNA. That's for another course. Next. We will not here discuss the role that good sugars play in altering gene expression or in benefiting, man in different ways on bad sugars or good sugars, and how the bad sugars can alter gene expression negatively and the good sugars can alter the gene expression positively. The DNA also, the backbone structure of the DNA, the double helix layer, is made up of some of the sugars and is built into the sugar phosphate. And because this area of the cell is so tiny, there's a lot yet to be discovered on which sugars do what. And so we're in a very, very exciting learning curve in the field of glycomics. And if you don't know it already, the field of glycomics, or the study of sugars, is probably 1,000 or several thousands of times more complex than the Genome Project. And that's a pretty big statement to make. Now, go ahead to the next slide, David. The reason for this picture in dealing with the cell walls is that it appears that the trehalose in plants and in animals does strengthen the cell membrane. We do not know exactly how it works in the human body completely yet. That's a lot of ongoing research that we are excited about being a part of. Next. Trehalose does provide sustained energy. Trehalose improves cellular hydration. Trehalose improves brain function. Trehalose protects the cells from stress, and trehalose improves gene expression. Next. And in these steps for better health, we need to learn what constitutes good health. We need to understand that protecting your cells literally is the key to protecting your health. Staying well is the answer to the healthcare crisis, and every dollar you spend in your health may very well save you hundreds of dollars tomorrow. This next picture is pretty interesting to me because here is a man that fell in a sewer, and he couldn't get out. He's literally logged in. He was walking home from the local bar, and he was not quite cognizant of the steps that were in front of him, and he got locked in here, and the fire department and the paramedics took a number of hours to get him out of it. And in this, he decided to stop drinking completely. But this man really represents where we're walking in healthcare, because a lot of people just simply don't know. And there's a lot of things, as Dr. David mentioned at the beginning, that we do that endangers our health, cuts off a number of years in our lifespan, and we need to do everything that we possibly can next to improve our health. Back in 1998, I wrote a paper entitled Good Sugars versus Bad Sugars. And in that, I said that bad sugars may contribute to heart attacks, cancer, stroke, a lot of different things that bad sugars do. And in our Sugar Science Forum on our website at the endowment, we've got a list of, I think it's 145 challenges, health challenges, diseases, and complications that bad sugar, table sugar, helps either cause or contributes to. And that is an awesome study when you start thinking about that. When a person goes to the hospital, they are almost automatically connected up to a drip system, intravenously being fed glucose. We know that glucose has a potential for fast energy. It's a fast energy source that can be released directly into the bloodstream. Glucose enhances memory. It stimulates calcium absorption, enhances cellular communication. And the next slide shows the different parts of the human brain as it uses the glucose in our mental capacity. Now, the reason we're discussing glucose here is that trehalose literally is two glucose molecules bonded together. One of them is turned upside down, and because of that, it releases the glucose into the system slowly, somewhat, shall we say, like a drip irrigation that you would get in the hospital. And to me, this is a very significant factor. This is just table sugar is also a disaccharide, but it's glucose and fructose. And when those are put together like that, they really become dangerous or harmful to the body. Next. In the chemical formulation of sucrose, regular table sugar, it becomes dangerous to the brain and also to the cells of the body, but we're taking in so many times more of that today than we were then. I made the statement some time ago that when it comes to high fructose corn syrup and sugar, America is taking it into their system like drinking from a fire hose. So back in the 20th century, there was about 5 pounds of sugar consumed per person per year. Today, it's about 150 pounds per year. That's pretty awesome. Next. But too much sugar can obviously be very bad. The excess intake of table sugar contributes to a whole bunch of things, including premature aging, diminishing eyesight, and overall weakness of the immune system. It's been said that 1 can of soft drinks, which has so much sugar and corn syrup in it, that alone can lower the immune system so that harmful diseases and even deadly diseases can take over the body a lot easier than before. The next slide shows how the 2 glucose molecules are bonded together and form the sugar trehalose. So when you come right down to it, trehalose is pure glucose. But because one molecule is turned upside down and it's bonded at a specific angle, it gives it a unique functionality that's not found in any other sugar. And if somebody doesn't think the angle of the bond is important and all of this, they need to think again, because when it comes right down to it, coal and diamonds are both carbon, and it's how the bond is made, and its pressure's been, there's a lot of things that go into it that make up something that acts entirely differently. The next slide shows the label that we have on the trehalose that just we must show this information, and what is interesting is that we must show the calories, and it looks like the calories are fairly high. Well, what is interesting is that trehalose does not cause a sugar spike. It's like that glucose drip into the body over a long period of time that gets the glucose to the body, but the trehalose has function itself that just regular glucose does not have, and we're going to get into some of those functions. It's going to be real interesting. This next slide has nothing to do with sugars. I just thought it was a cute picture of you can back up a minute, David. It is kind of funny. I just thought this was a cute picture of a little duck struggling to get up where the other ducks are. And I thought, well, maybe that's where trehalose is. Trehalose is the new sugar in town. Trehalose has been complementing what we call the royal sugars for quite some time now. And in our pilot surveys, we found that it is very beneficial. It's not as sweet as regular sugar is. It's only about 45% as sweet as sucrose, but it tastes so good that you can put a little bit of the trehalose on your tongue, say take a quarter teaspoonful or something, put it on your tongue, and taste it, then rinse your mouth out with water, and then take some regular table sugar on your table or out of the little packets or however you want to take it, and put about the same amount on your tongue, and you'll find a slight bitter aftertaste on regular sugar. So trehalose is really as clean as you can, clean a sugar as you can possibly get. Now, what is so exciting, the next slide shows that what's so exciting is that trehalose has been found to be instrumental in hormonal regulation and gene function in plants. A German science paper reveals the importance of trehalose in plant cell walls, the hormonal regulation, and gene function. The science paper recently published in another magazine, The Plant Physiology, discusses the role trehalose plays in the hormonal regulation. The study made available through a grant from the Federal Ministry of Education and Research indicates the important role that trehalose may play in active nutrient uptake uptake. And this is what is so exciting about the work that was done in outer space with Trehalose. And I understand that it's both been done by NASA and also by the European Space Agency. And the next slide shows how Trehalose literally can put life on hold. And I received permission from the Royal Society of Chemistry for this chapter, this paper, to be in my book. And this is so significant because Trehalose modifies the structural and dynamic properties of water, and it forms a unique entity with the water molecule that makes it better able to protect biological structures. And this is, the next slide shows the reason why many companies who have made skincare products over the years have come back in and recently altered their formula for skincare products and added the Trehalose because of its ability to hydrate the cell. And we're going to get into some areas of this in a minute that to me is just so exciting, cutting edge, and has just not only recently been researched, but you're going to see in a minute a paper that is being published July 2009 that is so interesting. Now, these little animals are fairly small. Viewed with a microscope, they're called tardigrades, but they're also called the water bears. And a number of these organisms are, well, they're microscopic, but what they have, the torture and all that they have been put through, the animal rights activists probably would have thrown a fit, but what you're going to learn is that these little water bears not only survived all that torture, they were able to reproduce and be healthy after all of that torture. So the Trehalose the next slide shows how the Trehalose really improves the stress tolerance both in plants and animals. And this improved stress tolerance can play a major role in science research for the future. And I'll just say this if I don't forget it, that in the future in the field of cryogenics, I can assure you that Trehalose will play a role there. Trehalose is a key molecule involved in drought tolerance and rehydration of organisms. This is so very exciting. And the next slide shows a plant which is called the resurrection plant for a reason, in that this plant can be so hydrated that it just looks almost like a pile of dust. And it may sit in this condition, I understand, for years, but when it receives water, it is able to blossom quickly into a beautiful fern or a fern-like plant. When it is dehydrated again, it goes back to what looks like just something that's dead, and but it can be in isolation. It can be inactive for years, but when it's hydrated again, it'll come back to life. And so that's one plant that has been done that way, and there's others, but this is so interesting. Now, the next slide shows another plant, another animal, that this animal is called the spring-tail bug or the spring-tail beetle. Under the backside of this insect, there is a lever. It's a spring, and when he triggers that spring, he can flip his whole body up into the air and land many body lengths away from where he is. But this is the insect that has been dehydrated for years, and you can see here in the lower picture that this is absolutely, now that's wrinkled skin. That is wrinkled skin. But this insect, virtually no water is there, or very little water is left there. He has been dehydrated and into nothing but almost dust. And when the water is added, or he is able to be rehydrated, and it is because of the Trehalose that he is, that he turns back to like the top picture is, and he's active again and can go on. Now, the next slide shows the size of these little bugs. And here's a penny with a whole bunch of them beside us, so that'll give you an example of the size of these springtail bugs. Now, the next slide shows some of the most awesome science research done with trehalose that man has ever accomplished. To the left are blood platelets that have been dehydrated, and they've been dehydrated. The microscopic picture on the right shows the blood platelets, and then how they can be hydrated again. In other words, we're getting close to being able to powder blood. That's pretty exciting. And so what can be accomplished here and utilizing of trehalose and what I said in cryogenics is certainly being verified with these studies. They have already been able to preserve liver transplants much better by using the trehalose. And what is so interesting to me on this is that this article says that a lower AST level after thawing. Now, the significance in that is that the AST is enzymes that are made by the liver. The liver uses these enzymes to metabolize amino acids and make proteins. When liver cells are damaged or dying, AST leaks into the bloodstream. Many different things can cause the liver enzymes to rise above normal levels, and those include viral infections and hepatitis and excessive alcohol use and liver inflammation and fatty liver and things that really damage the liver. And knowing that trehalose can play a part in preserving the liver when it is being transplanted is a very, very exciting bit of research that has just recently been done. Now, the next slide shows the trehalose research in outer space. Now, no human or other animal can endure the torture or stress that this little water bear has gone through. This is so interesting. Nothing else that we know of in life can go through all of this because it has been able to survive, and this is because of the trehalose, or at least partially because of the trehalose in its body, where this little guy was exposed to outer space in a vacuum, been exposed to pressures of 600 times the normal atmospheric pressure, and the next slide talks about been baked at 150 degrees centigrade, that's 302 degrees Fahrenheit. It's been dipped in liquid nitrogen. It's been plunged into mineral acid. And you see right away why I'm talking about the animal rights activists would have thrown a little fit on this one. The next picture shows how these little creatures have been exposed to boiling alcohol and extreme radiation. Now, after they have gone through this radiation that no human being can survive in, they not only were able, the next slide shows that not only were they able to survive that, but the water bear was still able to reproduce. Next slide. While the biological secrets of this water bear remain somewhat of a mystery, we have learned that the sugar trehalose plays a role in the water bear's ability to endure such stress. The science paper scheduled to be presented in August of 2009 is about this very little rough guy that has become a cosmonaut. Next. Inside, there's on our website, on the homepage, endowmentmed.org, there is a booklet published by the NIH, National Institutes of Health, and it's called Inside the Human Cell. And you can literally download this book from our website. And the yellow is highlighted by the information on the sugars. But this picture on the left shows that trehalose is shown to be effective in preventing deactivation of a number of proteins and protecting the cell from stress. And we're going to get into a little bit of that here in just a minute. Next slide. In the neurodegenerative challenges that man has, Recent discoveries show that trehalose can prohibit the cause of the neurodegenerative challenges, including Alzheimer's disease, but the mechanism has remained unclear until now. This paper was put together by a university in China. It is published in the July 2009 edition of the American Chemical Society magazine and the Journal of Chromatography. And we've learned that the key in hydration back up just a second, David. The key is literally being able to hydrate the peptide surface and the trehalose molecules clusters around the peptides. This is a brand new paper published this month that to me just substantiates, fortifies, and give us another dimension of research that's going on with trehalose. To me, this is just very, very exciting. The next slide talks about one of the papers that's dealing with Huntington disease and actually how and Chad Eschweiler, who will be on in the question and answer session in just a little bit, he's the one that brought us the information originally on the trehalose, and I owe everything to Chad on the moving forward with the literature research and with where we are and where I believe it's going to play a significant role in healthcare in the future. But this is so important. This was a paper that was published back in February of 2004. But the fact that the amyloid plaque proteins can be inhibited by trehalose is rather exciting. The next slide shows some of the research that's been done here at Rice University. No, I guess I jumped too far ahead. This is ongoing research on trehalose. Shows that literally the fate of the cell may depend on trehalose far more than science has discovered to date. The next slide shows some of the interesting technology that was developed here at Rice University in Houston with being able to pinpoint X-ray images. And this is so interesting how trehalose is going to be playing a role in nanotechnology and the study of cell walls. And this is a study of the protein shell of a virus, which shows how better to protect themselves from how we can protect ourselves better from viruses and how the cell can better be protected from viruses. Now the next slide is one that is just this is a friend of mine that was in the hospital here in Houston, and I went over to the hospital to meet him, and I really got a little bit angry at him and said, he weighed 439 pounds, and said, we've got to get you in better health, and you're going to lose 100 pounds. Well, in the subsequent months, he lost 87 pounds. He is on his way to being slim, and we are excited about the progress there. Now, there's studies going on trehalose and how they fit into obese men. There's a paper on that was published by the International Journal of Food and Science Nutrition, and that was published in January of this year. And so what we have learned is that we've heard that the sugar industry in America pretty well tried to document that sugar does not cause diabetes. They have, however, failed in prohibiting it from being known that sugar does cause obesity, and in turn, obesity causes diabetes. So they just removed it by one step. But the fact is, we need to eat right and get in continually better health. And time is running out. The next slide shows just a graphic that this is true. I mean, time is literally running out for a lot of people. Chad and I were on the phone just earlier about an hour or two ago, and he told me about a man that had been I had talked with just on the phone just recently, and 52 years old, died as he was getting off of an airplane in Los Angeles just the other day. And so we've got to take care of our health. The next slide just shows that a lot of the pieces are coming together. They're coming together not only in what we should do, but also in how the pieces are fitting together, because we're learning from technology that was impossible to attain a few years ago. But now with the equipment and the technology and being able to find out what sugars do is just blowing scientists out of the water on this, because as early as back in the 1980s, they didn't think sugar did very much except supply energy to the body. I don't know what year we learned that it's just one sugar that changes a little bit, and that determines your blood, what type of blood you have. The next slide just shows that we just simply need to eat healthier. And one way, of course, that we can do that is start backing off of a lot of the artificial sweeteners or the table sugars, and especially the high fructose corn syrup, because we don't need to take that into our system. And if you realize that nearly everything that we eat, or especially the processed foods, contain high fructose corn syrup, start looking at the labels. It will amaze you at how much high fructose corn syrup is in nearly everything. My wife was telling me that here's dill pickles. Dill pickles got high fructose corn syrup in it. I could imagine sweet pickles or bread and butter pickles would, but dill pickles, I was surprised. The next slide is just how we should really start the day by eating better. And I would encourage, if you start with a good bowl of cereal, oatmeal or whatever, and instead of sweetening it with regular table sugar, try substituting Trehalose for it, and I think you'll find that just a little bit of that in your system and weaning off of the other sugar. Another, I call it a positive side effect or a side benefit, we've had so many people that have told us that they craved sugar. They just had to have more and more sugar, more sweets, ice cream, and Icebox was calling out for them just when they walked by for a big bowl of ice cream. But when they eat the Trehalose, it's something that is very, very interesting, is that the craving for sweets subside. And I've had that over and over and over, and I know that's what you'd call anecdotal information, but you get enough of those, it could be pretty serious, and I believe it is. I found that true in my own life. Another thing that we do that the next slide shows is just we need to drink probably more water than any of us drink. And it's how much water that you drink that helps flush out the toxins out of the body. And the next slide is showing, of course, and all of us know this, and yet most of us do not exercise enough. But if we're going to extend our years, I think it's very, very important that we do all of these. The next slide. We need to just know where we are. In other words, go ahead and get a checkup, find out where you are, and at that point, the doctor may start trying to put you on a whole lot of medications. I had, over here at the 4th of July, we had a lot of people at the house, and they were all family and in-laws, outlaws, and some obnoxious family. And one of them pulled me aside and said, okay, JC, what do these sugars do for you? And when I explained that I'll be 70 years old this year, and I'm not on any medication, and I feel great, and I'm able to probably outdo a lot of people half my age, he did a kind of a head jerk, and his whole attitude was different from then on. Now, while we're doing this, the next slide shows something that is so significant in what we should do, and that is that we need to move toward lowering healthcare cost. And when we share the knowledge with your doctor of the sugars and other healthcare professionals, when you let your family and friends know that they need what they need to do to achieve better health, that we need to share the knowledge with our coworkers, we need to share the information, how companies know how better health translates into lower healthcare costs and a more productive workforce, and we need to encourage everyone to know how to take the next step to better health one day at a time. This is so important that we just, it's like the drip of glucose into the bloodstream. We know that it's important one day at a time, that we need to make today better than yesterday, tomorrow better than today, and just eating a little bit better, eating less of the bad stuff, stop drinking the Cokes, and stop eating so much sugar. If you're tempted by alcohol, you need to back off of that. There are so many things that we can do in our own lives, each one of us, that we can add years to our lives. If one cigarette takes off X number of minutes a day, X number of minutes for every cigarette that a person takes, and they stop doing that, and then you start doing the right, it just makes sense that you could add years to your life. What we would encourage you to do is to check out on our website the research. We've got a lot of research on there. You could probably go to endowmentmed.org and spend a couple of hundred hours on there, literally. I wouldn't suggest you do it all at one time, but go in there from time to time and read in the news section, go into the Sugar Science Forum and read that information. And when you go to the home page, there's a lot of headlines. You can scroll down and get a lot of information there. And we've duplicated the home page about 4 times, so we retain a lot of the headlines that were on there recently, so that they'll be easily accepted. We're not going to spend but a moment on this next slide, which is just this is the book that I wrote called Expand Your Mind, Improve Your Brain, where I reference well over 700 MDs, PhDs, scientists, researchers, and educators in the field of glycomics and brain function, in the field of sugars and brain function. And Dr. Robert K. Murray, MD, PhD, was with the University of Toronto, wrote the foreword to me, and for me, and I really appreciated that, and it's so great to have somebody of that caliber that did that. Next slide is just where on our website you can find a lot of information on the Trehalose. When you go to the button up at the top that says Easy Find It button, or you come through through our website, through one of our affiliates, it will fall on a page there that really makes it easy to find a lot of things on the website. And when you click on the Trehalose News, that will take you to a lot of articles dealing with the Trehalose. Also, next slide shows that on we've got a newsletter that you can subscribe to. Next slide. There's a section on there just dealing with, it's an information letter on Trehalose, and it's a long letter. It goes on and on and on, and you can read down and just continue to get more information on Trehalose as you wish to, as you read down. Or we've just tried to make it easier to access the information than it used to be. The next slide just gives you a little bit of an example of some of the headlines that are on the home page dealing with the news articles or the headlines on Trehalose. And the headlines pretty well explain themselves. And normally in our news articles or headlines, I just have a short comment on it there, and then it goes into the news articles, goes into the next area of, there's a little video there on the right side of the home page. It's a 21-second video of Dr. Robert K. Murray explaining the importance of the science of sugars, a very, very informative area. This is just the example of the Trehalose molecule and more information on that. You could just go on and on with a lot of information that's available there. But I would encourage you, if this has been interesting to you, to pass the information on to other people. You can buy the Trehalose from our website on the e-commerce section. I didn't realize that slide was in there. Go to the next one, David. So help us spread the news by just, driving people to the website for information. It is an educational website. You cannot the only sugar that you can buy on there is the Trehalose, and we do have a bookstore and a storefront, and all of the funding, all of the money that comes in through the bookstore and through the storefront goes to help educate and help research in the field of sugars. So you can help us spread the word by becoming an affiliate, and their information is on there on how to do that, and that's something that we would encourage you to do, or at least look into. Well, David, it's almost an hour, and I just wanted to let you ask some questions or open it up for Chad to be on here with us to answer some questions.
Well, JC, this has been a masterful presentation. Thank you so much. These pictures, these diagrams are amazing.
Kind of overwhelming for a lot of people.
Well, I think part of the problem was that I was just zipping through the slides faster than I should have. But somehow we pulled it off. Folks, just remember there is a panel to the right of your screen, a blue panel, and then there's a slot that says questions. You can type in your questions, and as JC said, he and Chad will be here to answer the questions for you. Sure, do we have any questions there?
Well, yes. One of the first questions says, should anybody who is dieting be on the sugar?
Say that again.
If somebody is dieting, should they use this sugar?
Get Chad on the line with us. Chad, are you there? Chad, are you there?
I don't hear him.
Okay. Anyone that is dieting, what is so interesting is that it would be a lot better to eat the Trehalose probably than it would be for any other sugar or regular table sugar at least. So if a person is dieting, it depends on them. Before a person does a lot of dieting, naturally the disclaimer would be to check with your physician. It's an interesting thing that we have had diabetics that have been eating the Trehalose, and they have a lower blood sugar, and this has happened over and over and over again, with a lower blood sugar while they're eating the Trehalose than when they get off of it. Now, whether that is simply they're not getting the Trehalose or they're reverting back and eating, bad sugar, I don't know. But that's happened so many times, it's become a very, very interesting, observation.
Okay, another question. And I was wondering, how is Chad going to get in? Was he calling in, or?
No, he's supposed to be on there to, if you've unmuted have you unmuted the audience?
No, what's his last name?
Eschweiler.
Oh, does it say Charles? Okay,
yes.
Let me unmute him. Okay, Chad, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm sorry we had you blocked off there for so long.
That's okay.
Okay, let's see. One of the next questions says, what is the latest time of the day to take Trehalose so it doesn't disturb your sleep?
I don't know that there is one. Do you, Chad? I don't know that has any bearing.
Well, generally, if you are sensitive to sugars...
Talk a little louder, Chad. It's pretty weak.
I'm sorry. Okay. Generally, if you're sensitive to sugars, you would want to treat this as you would any other sugar and do what is called teetering, which means you start with a very small amount and try that out the way you would any new food. I'm speaking now of folks who might be diabetic. While there is not as much of a sugar spike using Trehalose, it's much less than sucrose, there is still a spike, and you need to be careful if you're a diabetic. You could check with your medical doctor. You want to start out with a very small amount, try that, then try a little more, see how that works, so on and so forth. Most diabetics know how to do this if they've understood the condition and have worked with a doctor to help them understand. So that's the advice that I have about that. In terms of studies that exist about the side effects of trehalose, there is one study based in Great Britain, approximately 50 participants. It was a safety trial. This safety trial had roughly 2% of the population reporting that they had some trouble digesting the trehalose, and their primary side effect was a little gas. So that is probably not a serious side effect. Might have some social embarrassment with it from time to time, but not a serious side effect. In this country, the FDA does have a GRAS letter. That would be an acronym, GRAS, which stands for Generally Recognized as Safe. That letter was published in the year 2000 and is available on the FDA's website. It is available as a food. It's not been approved for use as a nutraceutical or a pharmaceutical, but we can eat that sugar. I believe that the testing went up to approximately 5 tablespoons, 6 tablespoons, something like that.
It was 34 grams, I think.
Yeah, well, that's quite a bit. So I think you can purchase this food and consume it, especially within those parameters, without having very much to worry about at all.
Okay, thank you. And Chad, it looks like you're probably using a microphone, and if you can move it a little bit closer to your mouth, you're still a little bit faint.
Okay, how's that?
There, that's a little bit better. Okay, the next question. Somebody wants to know if they can order trehalose in Canada.
Yes, we are. We're shipping to a lot of different countries. We are shipping to Canada, but we've just recently worked out an arrangement that, depending on where it is in Canada, we can probably deliver it from Canada. So, yes, the answer is yes to that.
Okay. How much trehalose would be needed for a health benefit?
Oh,
you want me to answer that, Chad?
Go ahead, JC.
Well, we got to use the disclaimers because we're not, we don't know what, I think it would vary by individual. We know that. Every individual is unique. We were doing the pilot surveys, and we're recommending 2 tablespoons full a day, and the results when someone found out that they had misread the instructions and were doing 6 tablespoons full per day, that they had remarkable health benefits during that period of time. That being the great scientist that I am, I moved it from 2 to 6. A little humor there.
Right. Sorry. I'm reading the next questions to figure out which one to ask you, so I apologize. Can we replace normal sugar with trehalose? I think the question might mean in cooking and measurement, is it equal?
Yeah, absolutely. It's only 45% is sweet. So either the end result, we had some friends come over to the house the other night and bring us a bunch of cookies made with the trehalose, and they were absolutely delicious. They weren't quite as sweet as you may want something, really, we got craving for more and more and more sweet. But not only does trehalose have a clean taste, and it helps remove the crave for sweets, I don't think we need cakes and cookies to be quite as sweet as, as we have had them. If you want it to be sweet, that's something you just kind of have to play with and use a little bit more and see if the consistency will change the batter or whatever.
Right. Are there any precautions that someone needs to take with a child that has type 1 diabetes?
Well, you always have to take precautions when it's diabetes. Chad, how would you like to answer that?
Well, a child with type 1 diabetes, you would want to discuss this first with a child's medical doctor, and then treat it the way you would any other new food for the child based on the instructions that their doctor has given you.
Okay. Does trehalose contribute to yeast overgrowth as table sugar does?
I believe we have a paper on there dealing with that, don't we, Chad? That it seems to inhibit that, but I am not knowledgeable enough to personally speak on that myself. I know that trehalose literally serves. It's interesting that it serves as a natural preservative a lot of times in foods, and so that's pretty amazing within itself. Chad, I don't know how to answer that question. Do you?
Well, there are different forms of yeast, and they will react.
You're going to have to speak up a little louder. It's really
Sorry.
weak on this end.
Okay, sorry. How's that?
Okay.
There are different forms of yeast out there. They're not monolithic. They're just like there are all kinds of living organisms. There are quite a variety of different yeasts. And trehalose is a sugar. So it is conceivable that some yeasts may feed on trehalose, and others might not be very successful at feeding on trehalose. So it would depend on which variant of yeast is at hand. I wish I could have more specific information for you, but unfortunately, that's what science is all about. We're trying to develop answers.
Yeah, there's an interesting little phenomena that when you are baking with it and you're baking it into a ingredient that contains yeast so that the cake or the whatever it is will rise, utilizing the trehalose, it will rise about twice as fast. That's interesting. I do not know what that means.
Here's another question related to brains, and it says, could this help any kind of brain cell degeneration?
I don't think we can make that medical claim, and it depends on the individual. I feel like that. I know we've had, from an anecdotal standpoint, we have had a lot of people say that they seem to be less, think less foggy and have more clear thinking and that type of thing. And so that's something that a person would be wise to experiment with themselves and just see.
Okay. This is sort of a serious situation that somebody's sharing with us, and it says, a 17-year-old young man suffered severe brain damage in an auto accident on Monday, now in an induced coma for a few days after 2 surgeries. Can this sugar help gain better recovery after he gets out of ICU?
The answer is we don't know yet.
Okay.
That would be something. See, over the last 15, 16 years, and the experiences that we've had with brain function, the experiences we've had with stroke, the experiences that we've had with people that were in coma, and we had very, very positive results. We don't know to this day what really caused those positive results. We were elated. It was wonderful, but can you give the credit to the sugars? I don't know.
Okay. You mentioned your book, JC, Expand Your Mind, that book. Is it available already?
It is available as an e-book, and we hope to be able to have that, before too long. That will be in both a softbound and hardbound edition.
Okay.
You can pre-order that, but I'll tell you what, if you order that book now as an e-book, and we add to or modify, you will get an update of that also. So I just want somebody to say, okay, I got an old edition. I don't want I want the current edition, and we will update that as we go forward. And there is so much happening that it's pretty astounding, and there's sugars out there that we did not know about that science is really just learning about, and their significance. I mean,
now, JC?
Yes.
I was going to ask you, I don't think, I probably wasn't paying attention, but trehalose, does that occur naturally, or is it something that is put together?
No. Trehalose does occur naturally in nature. It is in plants and animals.
Oh, in animals as well?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of plants would you find trehalose in?
Oh, we've got quite a bit of information on the plants that are available online dealing with the different plants. What is so interesting, I had a person talk to me recently that mentioned an Oriental doctor down in I think in the Philippines that had developed a rice that did not need as much water. And trehalose was part of that whole gene expression to enable rice to do that. And so that rice contained it. What I'm learning and what we're beginning to experiment with is that more plants can utilize trehalose than where you find it only in minute areas. More trehalose in that plant seems to have a positive effect, and that is for a whole new dimension of trehalose and a whole dimension of what we're talking about, because we're working on some things that's rather proprietary, and patents are being applied on that will be we can't, I don't want to talk about it right now.
Okay.
Perhaps I could speak to some of those aspects of questions that that Dr. David was talking about here. Trehalose is one of the most ancient of sugars. It's found in animals that are like shellfish, crayfish, lobsters. It's found in mushrooms. It's found in life forms that are adapted to survive in very extreme conditions. And this sugar gives the cells of these animals and plants the ability.
Chad, you're going away. We've lost volume. I don't know what in the world to do.
I don't know what to do either.
We just can't hear you. Or yell.
You want me to yell? How's that? I'll try here. The trehalose is found in organisms that are better adapted to extreme environments. It has to do with the ability of the trehalose to reinforce those cell walls, those cell membranes, cell walls in plants, cell membranes in animals. The human body is, of course, adapted to eat a wide variety of foods, and many of these plants and animals have been foods that people have eaten since the time of the cavemen and probably before. So our bodies are able to make use of these sugars. We're built to make use of them. But we haven't had these sugars present in the makeup of the modern foods. So it might be a good idea to have some trehalose every so often.
Right. And I don't know how you would equate this, but we believe, and this is what we are attempting to verify and pull research together from universities all over the world, in that we believe that trehalose has a very, very positive benefit to the human body, and is not, I don't believe it is produced by the human body very much. If so, it's very minute. Now, that same case is true with vitamin C. The human body does not produce it. We need to acquire it. We need to eat it. And I would put that, the trehalose in the same reference with that. But Chad and I haven't talked about that.
Are there any things in the works as far as trying to get commercial food processors to purchase Trehalose so that it could be put in foods instead of artificial sugars? Somebody said, in other words, can the makers of Oreo cookies replace their sugar with Trehalose?
Well, here's the thing about it. In the sugar, in the whole science of sugars, they range from like fructose, like to $4,000 or $5,000 a kilo. Trehalose is one of the more economical ones, but $7 a pound is still too expensive to mass replace cheap corn syrup. And the food quality is based upon, America's food quality is based upon economics more than it is health. Mm. And so who's going to replace a cheap sugar with that? That's going to be left up to the family. That's going to be left up to the individuals to replace their bad sugars with good sugars. Now, it's interesting that Trehalose is being added in sport drinks, for an example, and because it is sustained energy. So you'll read on a lot of sports drinks now that it does contain Trehalose. You'll also read on many well-known cosmetic companies' products that Trehalose is now added because they know that it helps protect the cell membrane.
Mm. Well, that sort of leads to one of these other questions. It says, is Trehalose sufficient to replace fructose in high-protein drinks to enable fast protein synthesis that a bodybuilder would drink within an hour or so after workout to feed the muscle tissue and prevent its breakdown after a workout?
That is a rather complicated question, but I tell you what, more and more of the athletes are using Trehalose in their drink because it is sustained energy, and it does seem to have a very, very positive characteristic for athletes. And Chad may have a comment on that I don't have.
Well, a sugar-based drink, you'll have that spike of energy, and then you'll have that letdown following it. The spike in the Trehalose will extend out over a much longer period of time, so you'll have more energy to work with over a longer period of time. Now, you have to match that against the amount of energy that the athlete is expending over that same period of time to see if you are going to line up on a one-for-one ratio, or if you're going to be using more energy than the sugar is providing, or not. So it's kind of and that's going to be different for every athlete out there that's using these products. You'll have to find your own balance point, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing, whether it's an athlete or whether it's just a person with a serious health complication, it does seem to address neurodegenerative challenges. And the neurodegenerative challenges, that may be mobility as well as mental. And if it improves those that are in serious condition, I do believe it has a very, very positive potential for those that are healthy.
Somebody earlier had asked a question about yeast. Here's another similar one. It says, does Candida feed on Trehalose?
Chad, there's an article that's published that we have posted under the news section under Trehalose, I believe, and it deals with Candida. And the article is so scientific, I don't understand it. Do you?
Well, Candida presents in two different forms, two different stages in the development of Candida. The work is still thin enough that we can't really say with a definite answer one way or the other. I'm waiting for more studies to be done on the topic so that we can get some clarification on some of the finer points. But the good news is that research is being done about it, and I am always reviewing the scientific literature and looking for new updates about that. So we don't know yet exactly about how it might affect Candida or which stage of the Candida would be impacted one way or the other. So that is a good question, and we hope to be able to have an answer to that at some point.
Okay. Is the source of your trehalose plant-based only?
Yes, you can make trehalose from basically any starch. And it is an enzymatic gymnastic formulation that has been developed recently that enables them to manufacture the trehalose from cornstarch for about 1 penny on the dollar of what trehalose used to be able to be manufactured for. And Chad and I have talked about that because we've come with people saying, well, what about genetically modified corn? Well, when you are refining molecules down to 2 glucose molecules and one of them's turned upside down, there's not much room for, contamination, and the purity of the trehalose we're talking about is I think is 99.6. It's very, very high. Chad, do you have a comment on that?
You hit it pretty well. The molecule, in terms of genetically modified foods being a concern, they certainly are in Europe. There are a lot of people in America and Canada and other parts of the North American continent that are also concerned about genetically modified foods. But we do not have to worry about that in the case of trehalose, because the trehalose is a very specific formulation involving 2 glucose molecules. And as you've correctly pointed out, JC, even if the starch source was genetically modified, by the time they're done creating trehalose out of it, there isn't any of the more complicated structure left that might present a challenge due to genetic modification.
And I would just add that I was naive in a lot of things. I'm still naive in a lot of things, but not as naive in some things as used to be. One of them is the big difference between genetic modification and gene expression. We can alter gene expression very safely, positively, to improve a cell, to improve a body, without genetically modifying it. Toxins in the system, and this was one thing that Dr. David Busby at Texas A&M presented 2 works at our glycomics conference, and one was how there is altered gene expression by the toxicity of plasticizers in the drinking water in Texas. And then here's another study of showing how the sugars positively alter the gene expression so that it's better than it was.
In the last several years, there's been lots of breaking research about how other essential sugars help with cellular communication. Does trehalose have an active role in cell communication?
No, I don't think it has an active role in cellular communication, but when it comes to the glycoprotein receptor sites protruding through the cell membrane, if you can make the cell membrane healthier, and if you can make what I call the topsoil through which the glycoprotein receptor sites protrude a better foundation for them, it makes a lot of sense that it could improve their quality.
Okay. There's a few other questions here about the other biological sugars. I know you've got a lot of information about that on your site, so if you just want to maybe tell
Well,
them.
Chad has helped bring some sugars to light, and we used to think that trehalose was maybe the 9th sugar, and I think we've gone way beyond that. I think there's probably about 16 or 18 really, really great sugars, and scientists are learning what they do but because they are such a small amount within a cell or within the DNA structure or within the, in different parts of the body that are partly made or constructed with these sugars, it's hard to analyze them. But as scientists move forward in universities all around the world and in labs all around the world, new information is coming out so fast that even Chad can't keep up with it.
Do you know where somebody could get some information about sugar and Huntington's?
We've got quite a bit of that on the website.
Okay.
And you can find that under, go to the news section and under Huntington disease.
Okay.
The news section can be accessed from the top navigation bar that says news from the home page, endowmentmed.org.
Somebody said they see sucralose on products, and they're wondering what sucralose is.
Splenda.
Okay. And we should avoid it, right?
That's my opinion.
Another question.
That's what I was told. Now, I'm almost positive I'm right on that, but what I would suggest is going in on the website, on the Google, for an example, and typing in both those words and see what happens.
We've had a few questions, other questions come in about other types of health challenges, cystic fibrosis and MS and schizophrenia and bipolar. If somebody goes to your website, is there a way just to search maybe and find out what kind of articles you would have?
Yeah, you can. We've got a search engine on the website that will help, that may help a lot along that line, and it's in the upper right-hand corner. But if you go to the news section, it's alphabetized. A lot of information is alphabetized there. And if you go to the Sugar Science Forum, which is a glorified blog within our website, that you can see a lot of different topics there, and that's where people can comment and ask questions and explore.
Okay, that'd probably be a better way for those questions to be answered. And then it looks like there's probably one last question. Somebody wants to know if there will ever be another glycomics conference.
We certainly hope so, and we are working on some funding. We had what we thought was a $5 million grant that was committed that never did fund, and it threw us into a tailspin. And I've been, pouring money into the endowment that I didn't have, and we are seeing we've got a couple of grants working now that hopefully that we can see everything turned around. And when we do, we certainly want to. And there's a lot of possibilities, for that, and I'm excited about that, and I appreciate the person asking. Our intent is yes.
Okay. Well, this has been great information, J.C.
Let me make one brief announcement for anybody that's left on there, and this will be shown on our website. Tonight's training obviously was on Trehalose, and we didn't cover any other sugars. And I've had so many people that want to know if we'd be marketing or making other sugars available, and I have consistently said no, I didn't think so. We did not want to divert the attention from Trehalose. There is another sugar. It's really not a sugar. It's a sugar alcohol that's out there that's called xylitol. And it has a lot of benefits, seems like, when it comes to dentistry or teeth and health from that standpoint. It has no sugar spike, and it's nutrition-wise, I think it's pretty worthless. It certainly doesn't seem to have any of the health characteristics that Trehalose has. But having said that, the endowment just received a shipment of xylitol for us to use as a fundraiser, and later tonight we'll be posting information on that, and anybody that wants a supply of xylitol can order it on our website. We're not setting up an e-commerce because this is a one-time thing, and it'll be a contribution over on the left side, and the information will be on there. And that money will go straight into the endowment to, to move forward and pay bills and educate people. I'm pretty excited about that gift.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you again so much, JC, and we apologize for the system not working as perfectly as it should have. Folks, if you would like to view or listen to the presentation again, as we mentioned earlier, these are all recorded, and electronic downloads are available for other sites. We just want to mention again that the membership platform or feature is still available, and we're going to extend the discount for about another 2 weeks, and so you can get some more information about that. Also wanted to mention that if you wanted to buy the Trehalose from JC from the endowment, there's also a link from our site on the home page. You'll see the image of the sugar Trehalose there, and so while you're shopping for DVDs or MP3s or whatever it is that you like there, you can also shop for Trehalose from our site. Well, this has been great. JC, anything else you want to add?
No, I really appreciate your inviting me on, Dr. David, and appreciate what you're doing to educate and inform people.
Well, we appreciate you, and I just want to remember that you were the one who even connected us with some of our really good speakers who have helped us out, like Dr. Dolan, and she will be coming up again on the 18th to speak about autism. So we appreciate your support for what we do as well. All right, well, this has been great. Have a good night, everyone, and remember, Tuesday, Dr. Koenig is going to be talking about spirituality, religion, and physical health. It's going to be great. You all have a good night, and God bless.
Good night.